What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the Straight Facts YouTube channel. It's always presented by the Up On Game Podcast Network. But we had a big day today, Thursday, February 10th. A huge day in the NBA landscape. And so we had to come and talk about it as the NBA trade deadline happened today. So many deals went down. I'm here with my guy, Jake Galley, who is literally dancing in his seat because the biggest news of the day, we'll get to it a little bit later, but the biggest news of the day obviously was James Harden being traded to the 76ers. He literally so much joy on your face right now.
All I'm gonna say, because we will get to it, it's nice being right. It's just nice being right about a lot of things, but we'll get to it.
A lot of things. We'll get to it because a lot of teams made moves today. Some of them impactful. Some of them, maybe less impactful right now. We'll have yet to see, but we'll run down through the entire list of the NBA trades at this deadline and see, who came out on the better half. So the first one, we'll go start it right at the top, probably the most head-scratching one through the NBA landscape right now. Woj even said that the entire league was stunned by this deal, and that's the Sacramento Kings trading Tyrese Halliburton to the Indiana Pacers in return for Domantas Sabonis. So the Kings received Sabonis, Justin Holiday, Jeremy Lin, and a 2023 second-round pick. The Pacers received Tyrese Halliburton, Buddy Hield, and good old TT, Tristan Thompson, which is the needle mover, right? Is Tristan Thompson.
Yeah,
head scratcher, right? Like what was your reaction to this deal?
Well, and from one angle, I can understand it in the sense that if you are the Kings and you look at your roster and you're trying to determine where can I take away from, where can I add to, you look at the depth that they have with their guards, De'Aaron Fox, they had Tyrese Halliburton, they had Buddy Hield, and they had Davion Mitchell. So you have four guys right there that could probably, and pick either two, could start on just about any team. I mean, maybe not every team, but just about any team. And also a big part of it is Halliburton's youth and leadership. Like if you hear him talk, and this is what I think the biggest upsetting piece is, like he seemed to be bought in beyond the basketball player, Tyrese Halliburton, who I think is great. He was bought in like culture-wise, which is very hard to do in Sacramento. Like not a lot of people coming through those doors are like, I want to be in Sacramento.
Yeah, I'm all in.
I'm sure Domantas is not one of them, and he's a good player. And you could maybe even say, hey, if we're the Kings, we got the best player today. We got Domantas Sabonis. He's an all-star. He's proven commodity in this league, but I don't know. I would say that I would rather be getting I'd rather be the Pacers in this scenario. I'd rather get
100%
get Tyrese Halliburton, get Buddy Hield, the younger guys shooting, which is an asset in this league. And I think because you're not pushing this year, this is like a great spot to let Halliburton grow next to Malcolm Brogdon. Like it's a really good situation for him. So I'm happy for him.
I completely agree with you. For the Kings, I don't really get it at all. The only standpoint I get it is you had four players who played nearly the exact same position in De'Aaron Fox, Tyrese Halliburton, Davion Mitchell, and Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield a little bit of a two guard next to those point guards, but is in that front or backcourt role, right? So you moved two of them because you need to make room for the rest of your team, and you chose De'Aaron Fox and Davion Mitchell. Now I don't know if you chose them because of value's sake, because you're going to get the most in return for a young Tyrese Halliburton and, when hot, probably maybe one of the best shooters in the NBA, and Buddy Hield. But choosing those two, I don't think would have been my choice. And then the return you get. Like yes, you got the best player today, but what does Domantas Sabonis do for the middle of your team? Like, is that really how you want your team, kind of structured, putting Domantas Sabonis in there? I don't think that's what is going to benefit a gunner and a fast-paced player like De'Aaron Fox. Like, I don't think that's what's going to help the makeup of their team so much. So why Domantas Sabonis is what I'm like scratching my head about.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of have to wonder. Like, am I not valuing Sabonis enough? So I'm just looking. He might. I guess he played his first game,
and he snapped. I was about to say it's hard to make this point because he snapped at his first game. I know he did.
He put up 22, 14, and 5
on like 58% from the field. Like it was nuts. It was nuts.
It's pretty good. So
it was nuts.
I don't think it's like the end of the world. I just think that if I'm making a trade like that where I'm moving off of Halliburton, don't you try and see what, and you know what? We can only we can only see so much from this fan point of
Yeah.
view. I don't know if they were working on trying to get a similar package for Ben Simmons, but like maybe I'm delusional. Would you rather have like if it was Buddy Hield instead of Tristan Thompson, it's like a first round pick instead of
Right.
Tristan Thompson, but the other two guys are the same.
Would I rather have Ben Simmons instead of
Then
Domantas Sabonis?
Sabonis, right? If you're that,
Yeah, 100%.
right. So if
I don't know
I'm
if
a
it's I
fan,
don't know if it's there are teams who benefit from Sabonis. I don't know if the Kings are one of them. Put it that way. Like I
right?
just don't know if that's the Kings.
And like, is he your center? Is the other question, because we've already seen that he doesn't really he doesn't gel well with a guy who you think would fit there, like Miles Turner. If I'm thinking of a guy to put next to Domantas Sabonis, I want someone who's stretchy, who is athletic, and who can play some defense. That, like, Miles Turner's checks all of those boxes, and both of them couldn't stand playing with each other on the court.
Yeah.
So it just brings up some questions. I know they got rid of Bagley, which is kind of like that was their failed plan for the 4 position. So maybe they are trying to finally get a good look at what they thought Bagley was going to bring. Like, hey, we've got, we thought we were going to bring in Bagley and it was going to be great. It wasn't. So, hey, it's too early to tell. I just am a big Halliburton fan.
Yeah, so am I. And I think, now Rick Carlisle gets his hands on him and hopefully they can start to turn around what was, happening badly in Indiana. Speaking of Indiana and their former players, we can continue with the early deadline deals because they sent Karis LeVert and a second to the Cleveland Cavaliers. In return, they got Ricky Rubio and a 2022 first round pick and 2 second round picks. So a little bit of a haul for one Karis LeVert there, but I love the move. I love the move from the Cavs. I love it. A low-key contending team in the East, a team who's still going under the radar from a lot of people, got a Giannis Antetokounmpo co-sign, and are still going under the radar from a lot of people. He rejoins his old teammate in Jared Allen. He joins an up-and-coming backcourt teammate in Darius Garland. The Cavs are doing it. The Cavs made a great move.
In retrospect, this move actually makes a lot of sense for the Pacers to do because obviously they bring in Hield and Halliburton that would have left LeVert in a weird spot. But when it happened, I was like, oh my gosh, the Cavs got over on the Pacers. Because it's like, and it's not that LeVert's like the best player out there or even like a top 5 player that got traded all told. But I do think that he gives them what they didn't have. They had the big, they had the lengths with Mobley and Allen. You had the guard position locked down, which you can consider maybe LeVert somewhat of a guard. But they didn't really have, they have Okoro on the wing, and then it gets a little dicey. So you add in LeVert, it gives them depth, it gives them balance. When this move happened, I bet on the Cavs to win the East. It was 24, it was like 28-1. The news got announced, it dropped to 24-1. So days later, it's 21. Yeah, it keeps on dropping. So people respect them.
You got the good ticket. And, off that same point, the Colin Sexton injury happened. And what allowed Darius Garland to do is move completely into that point guard role instead of having to share it with Colin Sexton. Both of them are a point guard. Neither of them are a 2 guard. And they were both trying to start in that backcourt. It wasn't working. And now you see Darius Garland, his level of play rising. But you're right. Once he did that, it left a hole in that 2 guard spot. And they filled it beautifully with a guy who now can flourish in Cleveland with a young core that can just grow together for years. So a great job for Cleveland to get it that one. All right, last of the pre-deadline deals, and we'll get to the ones that matter. The Pelicans shook up the NBA landscape too. They get CJ McCollum and Larry Nance from the Blazers. In return, they get Josh Hart, go Cats, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and a 2022 first-round pick. So the Blazers, that was the start of what everyone thought was going to be a complete demolition, and then they stopped. Then they stopped. Yeah, I mean, kind of, because Norman Powell was the first domino to fall in all this. He got traded, but they traded McCollum and didn't trade Lillard. So what they gave Lillard in return said, we're gonna have to spend some money to get some money. We got you Josh Hart, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and a first round pick this year.
Gross. Like, how? I just don't understand. Like, I don't like to be the guy who's like, oh, I could turn the Blazers around if you no. Like I could do a better job than the GM of the Blazers is doing right
They
now. I
did.
could.
They did beat the Lakers their next game after. They did.
Yeah, without any no Dame, no one who's going to be on the team next year. They ended up beating the Lakers.
No Cove, no Norman Powell, no nothing.
That's a whole different thing. I would assume they do eventually trade Dame because there's going to be teams this offseason that are going to know that he wants out. Him and Beal will be the big names getting brought up, I would imagine. And like we discussed, I guess it was 2 episodes ago on the pod, like you really now Damian Lillard, you're going to have a low draft pick from this year. That'll be a good player. And then Damian Lillard gives you the chance of kissing this era goodbye and moving well prepared into the next whoever. If you want to trade him for Zion, go ahead and trade him for Zion. If you want to trade him for a couple first-round picks, you can go that route too. But they have to do something with Dame. They cannot try and rebuild the core around him, and I don't think they will.
But the reports are, and we can disagree with what the reports are. Reports can change, but the initial reports are that Damian Lillard is staying, and they're going to try to rebuild around him. So what they're going to do is hit the reset button for a third time. This isn't the second time. This is the third time. The first go-around was with LaMarcus Aldridge, Wesley Matthews, and Nick Batum. That didn't work. You hit the reset button with Terry Stotts. You go and get C.J. McCollum, Yusuf Nurkic, and company. That didn't work. Now you're hitting the reset button for a third time, playing with this man's career for a third time, and the first big move when you do it is Josh Hart and Nickeil Alexander-Walker.
Yeah, it's tough. And they didn't even keep Alexander Walker, who I'd like. Ended up getting moved to the Jazz in a subsequent deal for, I think, Joe Ingles. So it's just like...
So you get him Joe Ingles at the end of the day. For sure.
I'd rather have Covington than Joe Ingles.
Who just tore his ACL. Bad shaky baby.
Yeah, that was certified.
That was pre-NBA trade deadline. Then the clock struck Thursday, and things got real. Things got real, as Scott Hansen would say. The witching hour happened, and things got real.
Crazy.
On Thursday. We'll start with the first one, a lesser-known deal, but it happened on Thursday. The Hornets, in a low-key deal, go and get Montrezl Harrell and send off Vernon Carey and Ish Smith. Vernon Carey had a little bit of promise, was the number one player in his recruiting class going into Duke, had an amazing freshman season, came out and is going through the I came out too early woes right now. So now he gets moved. The Hornets bring in Montrezl Harrell, a high-energy guy, a guy who can go in that middle. Losing Bismack Biyombo, you go in that middle now with P.J. Washington. I think it's a good move for the Hornets. It's not going to make front-page news. It's not going to dominate headlines. But what it's going to do is make a 7-8 seeded Hornets team right now just that much better in a tight Eastern Conference race.
For the Hornets, it's great for them. Like, their depth, it is amazing for what they can do off the bench now, because you kind of had your P's and Q's covered with P.J. Washington and Miles Bridges as your kind of forward, small forward, power forward type players. But that's only starting, and they didn't have a ton of depth. Gordon Hayward goes down now for who knows how long. So the forward position was a big question mark. For Washington's end, it's a little bit of a head scratcher for me, a little bit, because I feel like the return is just so minimal. Now, Ish Smith did play the past 2 years, 26 and 21 minutes per game for Washington. So they're kind of spinning the block on Ish Smith to get some guard help. Yeah, I don't know. I would say this has high upside, low downside. I mean, for the Hornets.
To me, the point of view of this trade was all about the Hornets making a move to try to just beef up what they can, knowing that, this is going to make us title contenders, but it's going to improve our team as our team is improving. And I think that's also important. There's something to be said for that. But I thought it was for the Wizards, hey, someone's offering us, a guy maybe who will spend in the G League and a veteran guy to help us, get through the rest of the season. But a down and out team made a down and out move. Like it's
right.
I thought that this was the focal point was from the Hornets of my for me about this trade.
Oh, they got the better player. The Wizards, maybe you could argue, got their deal is that they get off of Montrezl's contract.
Yeah,
and
they also moved the Bertans contract too in another deal. We're not going to get to it, but that's kind of big for them to move Bertans' contract too.
Oh, we're not. Oh, we'll get to the Bertans deal.
We'll go get to the Bertans. Coming up right now. Why don't we get to it? I'm sorry,
Boom.
forgot he was in the back end of this deal. So the
Oh, yeah, they stuck
Wizards,
him in.
again, the Wizards are active, man. Again, they get KP from the Mavericks. And then I think in the low key, one of the best deals of this trade deadline was the Mavericks getting Spencer Dinwiddie, and they also get Davis Bertans. If it's one thing about Mark Cuban, he love his tall white boy European shooter, don't he? He going to get Davis Bertans again, but he also got Spencer Dinwiddie to pair in that backcourt with Luka when Luka has been screaming, get me another scoring backcourt mate. I'm a point guard, but get me someone who can score next to me in the backcourt, and 20 a game is nothing to scoff at. And Spencer Dinwiddie can give you that.
Let me ask you then, because I know obviously you're a big Nova guy. They had Jalen Brunson 16 points a game this year in there. 16 a game.
And imagine what that production goes to on the bench. You don't be afraid to bring that. It's going to go down because his minutes and his exposure is going to go down. But don't be afraid to bring that to the bench with a guy you know is going to produce in any role you give him. That's what Nova brings you. Like any role you give me, a la Josh Hart, I'm going to flourish and I'm going to do my part. He's going to bring that to the bench, beef up that second unit. But I think he's giving you 16. Spencer Dinwiddie gives you 20.
Yeah. And also, another facet of this, and I know Bertans was like a money deal, like just to make the money work. We don't want him, get him off our team type deal. But when they traded Seth Curry away to the 76ers, that was a really big piece of their offense. They did not have a guy like beyond Luka that was dead eye from three, can make his own shot off the dribble. Dinwiddie provides that. Brunson provides a little bit of that. And now you do have a guy in Bertans that if you can rehab his value, like that's huge found money right there that you're playing with.
Oh.
I want to go over to the other side though, because the Wizards GM, Tommy Shepard, I got to say has done a phenomenal job in my opinion. This offseason, he gets off the Russell Westbrook contract, which that in and of itself should be like winning. You should win.
It puts you in a VIP category. It's only about 2 GMs who's gotten that contract off sitting at a bar and get you in that room for sure.
Then he takes a guy who has one of the worst like non-max, like low-key bad contracts in Bertans, Dinwiddie, who hasn't been playing well, and apparently the teammate, he had fallen out of favor with teammates because he was trying to be a leader. They didn't want him to be a leader. And you trade that for Kristaps Porzingis, who, you know, at his peak is an all-star. At his peak is one of probably the 25 best players in the NBA now,
and has shown flashes. No, he has not been an all-star this year.
No,
but there have been. He's shown it in more stretches this year than I've seen it in past years. He's getting back to it.
And
for sure.
When you look at the things that now they could potentially do with this full-strength lineup, the Wizards, that is, you have a guard in Bradley Beal, 3 forwards who are super solid. Before you even get to Porzingis, you have Denny Avdia, you have Kyle Kuzma, you have Rui Hachimura. So if you wanted to play, if you could really get a little weird with that lineup, if you went Porzingis at the 5, played the 3 forwards and Beal, like I don't know if you could get across without having a true point guard out there, but
or a true
2.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Beal would be the true 2. Yeah, you need somebody.
It would be the true, but if he's out there, he has to be both, because you got Beal being 1 and 2, and they got 3 threes.
Yeah, it's a tough look. It's
a tough look, but I see your point in there's talent there. Yeah, there's talent there. You might have dispersed them in lineups, but there's talent there. That 5 might end up on the court at one time for a 10, 15-minute stretch, for sure.
Yeah.
But there's definitely talent there. I'm glad you shouted out Tommy Shepard, because, you know, he's been doing a good job.
For sure. I know someone else who's been doing a good job.
It's time. Jake,
yeah.
Jake, how you feeling, buddy?
I got the clip loaded up. I'm ready to let them fly.
How you feeling? It happened. 76ers fans across the NBA landscape rejoice. That man, Daryl Morey, did it again. He did it, a bad man. He did it again. Daryl Morey unloaded the Ben Simmons contract, the nightmare that is Ben Simmons, traded him, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and 2 first-round picks to the Brooklyn Nets for James Harden and Paul Millsap. Now, first thing I have to say, I will let you get your piece off. First thing I have to say is I think Daryl Morey at this point is the best GM in the National Basketball Association.
I don't think that can be argued.
I think for the last, this was the final piece, the final puzzle piece in a 4 or 5 year picture of him making moves for the betterment of his team that nobody thought he was going to be able to do. I'm talking about from Chris Paul to Russell Westbrook to Al Horford to Josh Richardson to Ben Simmons. He's knocked all the dominoes down in a timely manner, in a manner that doesn't, hurt his team. And this is the latest installment. I completely disagree with everyone who says that he made a big mistake trading Ben Simmons to a conference rival or giving up 2 first-round picks, or Seth Curry was gonna, what was too much to ask for. I disagree. I think Daryl Morey did it. I think Sixers fans should be happy as hell for this, man. I really do.
I had to check my mom actually, because she came, she was like, WTF, we traded Curry. I had to be like, Mom, you know that's Seth Curry, right? You know that's not Steph Curry we traded.
And that's do you Seth. Know who you got? That's the part of this that I was struggling to comprehend from people. Like, how can you trade Ben Simmons there? And no, even when it was Maxey and Matisse and company, you don't want to let them go. Who are you getting in return? There are about 9 or 10 James Hardens walking around in the NBA at their best. You got a chance to get one of them. Get him.
And
get him.
And the thing is, okay, let's say I got a machine that combines players. Put Ben Simmons in there, put Seth Curry in there, combine them. You know who it spits out? You know a dude who's got a great shot, great handle, can rebound and assist? James Harden. James Harden's pretty good at that. He's pretty good at doing that. So, look, I cannot believe after all this time, after all that was said about Daryl Morey and Ben Simmons and this franchise, he is able to move the consummate loser that is Ben Simmons for a guy who is top 5 in his position all time. You now get that guy on your roster to make a finals run.
Mm-hmm.
This is nothing but a smash win for Philadelphia. Anyone who's saying otherwise has not watched Ben Simmons, has not watched last postseason before that, postseason before that. Haven't watched him.
Simple as that. Simple as that. And I don't want to hear but you're going to have to see Ben Simmons. Why would you trade him to a team you have to go through? Jake, how many games have we played in the regular season so far? The All-Star break is this weekend. We are currently recording during the All-Star draft, which means more than halfway of the NBA season has gone by. I don't know what player, other than Jesus, can get dropped in game 60-something and be right in game shape, be right in the NBA ready to go, and then gel with his team's chemistry ready to go. I don't know.
That's a big one. What you just said.
Ben Simmons needs the ball in his hands. Guess who else needs the ball in his hands? Kyrie Irving. Guess who also needs the ball in his hands? Kevin Durant. Isn't that the same thing that everyone was talking about wouldn't work with James Harden because they all need the ball in their hands? So Ben Simmons also needs the ball in his hands and can't shoot it.
And that's the one that I have to spin the block on. That's the one I actually do have to reach back into the take jar. What's up, Brooklyn? You can have Harden. You can hold Harden for us, Brooklyn. It's not going to work. You got too many crazies.
A wise man once said, just give him James Harden. And they gave him to you, man. They gave him to you. So before you go, shout out to our guy, Kyle Sirik. Just posted a clip on our Instagram too. He said, go all in because it's time to maximize Joel Embiid's MVP run. And I completely agreed with him then. And I think Daryl Morey did right. But I think doing this did right by Joel Embiid. Waiting until the offseason and playing the James Harden sweepstakes does not do right by Joel Embiid because that's after the fact of this season. You made him waste another MVP season knowing that we're not going to get anything out of it just to hope we get something in the offseason with Ben Simmons still on the books if you sign James Harden in the offseason. And this does right by Joel Embiid.
I totally agree. And you know what's funny about us talking about Morey? Let's say they go the other route and they wait it out into the postseason. You want to know the one way Daryl Morey gets fired from Philadelphia? You go ahead and pull this whole thing at the deadline. We don't get the deal done. It goes to free agency. LeBron creates some room on his team. Kawhi creates some room on his team, and James Harden is suddenly in Los Angeles, and you still have Ben Simmons on your roster. That's how you get fired and be considered a terrible GM. So I completely agree with what you said about Joel Embiid. He has earned it to any way of the phrase. He has earned the help that he's about to get. It's the best player he's ever played with. It is the perfect fit with him. They're going to be able to finally run some pick and roll with the number one guard. It's amazing.
Let's sit on that point for a second, because I a known Suns fan. Anyone who's followed this podcast since its inception knows that I'm a known Chris Paul fan. I am so excited for that duo of James Harden and Joel Embiid for pretty much the same reason I'm a Chris Paul fan. The mastered pick and roll is probably the most unstoppable two-man combo move in the NBA, and you have two of the best players in it now. Like, what is the league going to do with a high screen and roll of James Harden and Embiid with a cleared out lane and options all over the floor? Like that's a scary sight, man. Do you see what James Harden did with Clint Capella? he had the Hawks thinking Clint Capella was a max money man. He had the Hawks thinking Clint Capella is a title piece. What's Clint Capella doing without James Harden now, man?
Luckily, he does have Trae Young, or else he would be bottomed out.
Look at his numbers with Trae Young.
Right.
Like I'm not spitting at him, but look at the numbers with Harden and look at the numbers with Trae Young. James Harden and Joel Embiid can really master this pick and roll, and I think really cause a lot of havoc, at least in the Eastern Conference, if not in the NBA. Like I think that's something to really be excited for.
Yeah, and it's not even just Embiid and Harden. Like if you want to go Harden and Tobias, and you have Embiid weak side down in the post, like no help defense is coming. You're not leaving Joel alone down there. And another scary thing, James Harden 6'5", 225. If they wanted to run Embiid ball handling pick and roll with James Harden as a screener, that's something else you could feasibly do, which is disgusting because Joel Embiid's 7'3", is 300 pounds. But I mean, there's something special brewing in Philadelphia, and I cannot wait to watch it.
You're a Sixers fan. I'm not, so I can look at it from the Nets' point of view too. I do think we talked a lot, down about Ben Simmons because I don't have a high value or a high view on Ben Simmons right now. As a person, as a basketball player, I realize the value that he brings to a team and to the Brooklyn Nets, a team who has no defensive identity, a team who needs help with a facilitator because you're losing one in James Harden, and Kyrie and KD publicly have said, I don't want to be the facilitator. I want to score the ball. I need a facilitator. So you get a guy who's only worried about facilitation, rebounding, and defense. At an all-NBA level, he does all of them at an all-NBA level when he's at his best. That's a big win for the Nets. Low-key, and with the only thing they got over on Daryl Morey is they got Drummond out of him too. Like Seth Curry was a known, I'm going to have to give up a commodity, and one of them is going to be Seth Curry, Tyrese Maxey, or Matisse Thybulle. I've swallowed that already. Drummond was the piece that I was like, Daryl had to concede somewhere, and that's where he conceded because you lose that backup big for Joel Embiid, who's been really solid for you. You get Paul Millsap, who hasn't been active in like 11 games, I just saw. And then the Nets get the really low-key piece they were missing was some beef in the middle of their lineup. And they got that with Andre Drummond, who's low-key having a very, very solid year for the Sixers.
No, they did. And that's what you got to give Sean Marks credit for not folding. A lesser GM would have said, okay, Ben and Curry and nothing else, or Ben and Matisse and nothing else.
And the picks, right. Give me the picks, and then we'll call it square.
Right. A lesser GM would have done that. Instead, he held firm. He held out to the very last second, and that enabled them to really, as you said, fill out their lineup with things that they did not have. Granted, they kind of had Curry's role. I'll be interested to see what happens with Joe Harris once he comes back.
I thought he's been injured, right? Yeah.
He's been injured, so it'll be interesting to see how they all work together.
I'm a firm believer is you can't have too many shooters, man. You can't have too many 3-point shooters because if one's covered, you throw it to the other one. And guys who command double teams when they get going downhill like Kyrie and KD, you can't have too many shooters surrounding them, man.
Yeah, just when things, and honestly, the same could be maybe said for Harden, and this is the last thing I'll have to say about it, but when things go downhill with Ben Simmons, and that is on the court and off the court, in a playoff series, you need Ben to score. Ben's not scoring. Ben's not holding up his end of the bargain. Okay, now you have a choice, KD, Kyrie. Are you going to hold Ben Simmons accountable? That's tough. He's not gonna like that. Are you
Katie's
not
already
going to? That's bad
Katie's
too.
are and Katie's already been known to not. He'll ask you one time, and if you say no, it's like whatever. I'm just gonna go do me, man. Hopefully it wins us the game. But that's the scary thing, Jake, is they don't need him to be. They don't need him to be at least the 15 to 20 per game scorer that the Sixers ended up needing him to be in the playoffs, right? Because Tobias ended up not being that. So you needed Ben, and it was more glaring that he wasn't. The Nets don't need that. Once New York lifts the mask mandate or the vaccine ban, like they might, and get Kyrie a chance to play, they have those two 25 to 30 per game scorers. KD might be 30 plus, and Ben Simmons doesn't need to be. He can get by with the 9 points as long as it's got 15 rebounds and 15 assists. Like he was saying to the Philadelphia media when they brought to his attention he didn't score, and he looked off camera and said, "What I have? 15 rebounds, 15 assists."
That's when you knew.
That's when you knew. But that's the player that the Nets can benefit from, because that's all the stuff we don't do. We got scoring. We score. Got scoring. That's all the stuff we don't do. And like Blake Griffin and Nick Claxton and those guys weren't really doing it for us.
Right. They don't really have a strong, besides KD, they didn't have like a forward who got in those grimy areas. It was kind of Harden, but Harden doesn't want to, that's not how you get the most out of Harden. So look, we might, honestly, I'll concede, like it might even be a win-win here, but it's like they can assemble the Avengers. Go ahead and assemble them. We got the Infinity Stones. It's too late. It's too late. The combo is together. It is too late.
And when Ben Simmons has to come to Philadelphia in Game 7, you will sit like Thanos and you said the error of you could not live with the error of your mistakes. And where did that lead you?
Back to me.
Right back
to getting booed in Philly.
This just the sweet irony of it all. You gotta love it. Yo, Jake, my man, thank you for hopping on and breaking down these deadline deals. It was a great one. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to the Straight Facts YouTube page, man. We're getting active on here, dropping as many videos as we can. But for my guy, Jake Galley, I'm James Jackson. As always, man, it's been the facts.
Straight up.